Alright guys, we are going to start our printmaking lesson today. So the first thing you're going to do is think of a dessert, whatever kind of dessert you like, or maybe you don't like but you like how it looks. That's totally fine too. I drew a piece of pie and then I also drew a cupcake. One of the rules when it comes to drawing your dessert is to make sure it has enough detail. It doesn't have to have an amazing amount of detail, but for example, if you just did like a gumball, obviously that's just going to be a circle and that's not acceptable for this project. So you need to make sure that you have enough detail, but also not too much, okay? So this is the perfect amount of detail right here. I still have my detail lines and extra features, but they're not super close together, okay? What you don't want are lines that are super close together. This one is fine too. Everything's still pretty spread out. If you're not sure, you can check in with me or Miss Kingsley. Don't be surprised if we tell you to go back and you need to add more detail or even change your dessert, all right? So I already drew these, so you don't really need to see me draw another one. But what you're gonna do is now get your styrofoam plate and you're gonna tape your paper over top to your styrofoam plate. And it's about this thick, if you can't really see it. I can kind of hear it. I'm gonna tape it right on top. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to say this earlier. This is really important actually. Before you tape it, I need your name to be in pencil on the back of your paper, okay? So on the back of this paper right here, go ahead and just write your name, okay? Just so we know it's yours. You cannot write your name on the styrofoam, otherwise it'll ruin your artwork, okay? So write your name on the back of the paper, and you're gonna start with a red pen. The order is important, okay? You're gonna trace twice with red and one time with blue. The first time with red, your paper is gonna be laying on top of your styrofoam plate, okay? So I have my red. I'm going over all of my pencil lines that I've already drawn, and I'm pushing nice and firm, not too hard, because if you push too hard, you're gonna rip a hole in the styrofoam. It's okay if you rip a hole in your paper. We're actually gonna throw this paper away once we are done tracing. So don't worry about the paper, but just don't press too hard because we do not wanna rip a hole in the styrofoam. Okay, and once you finish tracing all of your designs in the red while the paper is on your styrofoam plate, you can actually, that's why the tape's here, you can lift it up and you can see that because I was pressing down with my pen, the image was carved into the styrofoam plate, okay? So now you're gonna trace it again in the red pen, okay? So this is the second time we're tracing and you're going directly on the styrofoam. A little tip, once you have started tracing, let's say your pen isn't working or the ink isn't showing up, that's not really gonna matter. You really only need the hard tip of the pen to use to press down on your styrofoam, okay? So the pen doesn't necessarily have to work. I know we're using two different colors, so it seems like they do. The only reason we're using two different colors is because if it does work, because I want you guys to trace this 3 times total. If it does work, I want you guys to make sure you've gone over every single space that you have carved down one at a time. Okay, so now you can tell that I've drawn in red 2 times. I want you to switch to blue and redraw one more time. And this time I'm gonna go nice and slow with the blue and make sure I'm pressing down that styrofoam really, really good. Again, you're not pressing down super hard. You're just going over your lines to make sure you've pushed down your image enough. Okay, so I don't want you guys to rip a hole in your styrofoam. That's really important not to do. Before you print, you have to get yours checked by me or Miss Kingsley to so we can make sure that your lines are indented enough. Because if they're not, when you go to Printmake, your image isn't gonna print how you think it will. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, and now that we have traced in blue and my indentions look nice and clean, so I'm gonna go ahead and gently take this paper off. Be very careful when you're peeling this off though, because I don't want you to rip your styrofoam sheet. So I just went nice and slow. Now you are ready to print, okay? You're gonna have the choice between a few colors actually for your background. I think I'm gonna do pink and yellow for this one, just because they're brighter colors and I think they'll pop more. And everybody's gonna use black ink, okay? Once you have your two pieces of paper, your name needs to immediately go on those, because once you print on the front, oops, I'm writing my first name. Once you print on the front, you're not gonna be able to flip it over and draw write your name on the back, because this is all gonna be wet, okay? So the names are on the back, and you only need two. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go over to the ink printing station, and you're gonna have a tray that's gonna have black ink in it, and then a brayer. This is called a brayer. This is what it looks like, and it just rolls ink on. So there's a certain way you need to make sure the ink is distributed on your brayer, okay? So I'm just gonna put some on. When you start to roll, you've gotta start at the top, go down, lift your brayer back up, and restart at the top, okay? So you're not going back and forth like this, because then the ink isn't getting equally distributed over your brayer. So you have to lift it up and restart every single time. You could even turn it if you wanted to do that. And I feel like the ink is pretty distributed on my brayer now, so I'm gonna set that to the side, bring my styrofoam piece back, and I'm gonna just start from the bottom and go all the way up. And it looks like I need more ink on this side, so I'm gonna put my brayer back and pick up some more ink and roll some more onto my tray. I'm gonna be honest, this is a project where your hands are probably going to get a little messy, and that's fine. This does come out of your clothes, and it will come out of your skin, obviously, so don't worry about that. But once it kind of looks all evenly distributed on your styrofoam, you're gonna take your paper and find the back. The back is obviously gonna be facing up because this is the front, and that's how we're stamping it. So I'm gonna stick it on here and drop it. Once it's down, you cannot move it, okay? Because the ink has already touched the paper, so the ink's already on there. You cannot move it once it's down. So before you set it on top of your styrofoam, make sure that it's exactly where you want it to go. Just gently pressing all the way around, even to the corners. The corners usually get forgotten, so make sure you're using, I would do 3 fingers and rub like this. And then once you think it's ready, you're gonna find a corner and pop it off. And then you have your first print. And so I would do that a second time. I'd probably roll some more ink onto my tray, or sorry, not my tray, my styrofoam, and then reprint my yellow one so that I have 2. You only need 2 different prints. So once you've made your 2 prints, what you'll do is obviously the papers go to the drying rack, and then the styrofoam plate that you designed, you can either rinse that off and dry it off in the sink and take it home with you to keep it, or you can just throw it in the trash can. But the papers stay on the drying rack because we'll do something with our prints next time once they're all dry. Okay, then I have my 2 prints right here. Okay, now that your prints are nice and dry, they are ready to be glued onto one piece of paper. You have the choice between white or black for your background. So I will show you both so you know what both look like. I have my 2 prints. I'm just gonna put some glue on the back, but let me see if I can raise this. How it's going to be matted is it's gonna have a gap around the edge, and then there will also be a gap right in the center as well. So I'm gonna get my glue bottle, and you don't need that much glue. You could also use a glue stick if you don't want to use a glue bottle. I'm just gonna go around the edges and do a big X. I'm not using that much glue, it's just a really thin line, and I'm sticking it on my paper. And make sure your name goes on the back of your paper. I forgot to do that in the beginning of the video. That's super important because your name was on the back of these, but since you're gluing it down to a new piece of paper, it's not going to be on the back anymore. Okay, so that's kind of what the white looks like. It's framed a little bit better. The white stands out a little bit more. If you choose black as your background, it's not going to stand out as much. I still think it looks really nice though, so it will be your choice. All right, so you have your black right here for your background, or you could do white.